Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Knowledge is Key. I'm your host, Kei Renee. As I always say, thank you guys so much for tuning in, no matter where you're tuning in from, whether you're in your car, if you're watching this from YouTube, you know we love and appreciate you so much for tuning in. And man, I just hope you guys been having a good week. I always open up these shows and I just be like, I never really even know what to say at the very beginning, except for I hope you guys are having an amazing time. We're gonna have a good time today on the show. But before we get into our guests and what we're gonna do, I always have to remind you that if you want to stay up to date with everything that we're doing on this show, make sure that you join our VIP community by texting the word knowledge to 21,000. Again, that is knowledge to 21,000, and that's how you get early access to all these episodes, plus merchandise and deals and all the things that we have to offer here on the show. So today I have with me Shane Norman. He's an overall entrepreneur. I wanted to give him some titles, but I feel like he does so much that it's like, how do you just put that in a box? So we're just gonna, entrepreneur, that's exactly what you are. So Shane, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be here.
Yeah, you're such a busy man, so I do thank you for taking the time to come and talk to us. So today we're going to be talking all about the back end of television and streaming and networks and just the development of it, because that's what you have a background in. So I just want, just for people who are like, who is this man? If you could just let them know who you are and then what your background entails.
So currently in Hollywood or in the city, kind of build businesses with partners and with talent. Worked with Kevin Hart and Laugh Out Loud for a number of years, Lionsgate Group. Currently building out sort of a men's vertical. Work with Boris and Nicole Kojo on the upcoming fitness app. And of course, Zeus Network, which is I think I had on the Zeus mask.
Yeah, when we first met, yeah.
And really super proud of all these projects. And I'd like to say there's a real opportunity in this space to sort of build enterprise. That's one of my passions, actually building things. With people.
So do you? On yours, are you a fan of the back end of building the components, the technical side of it, or are you more a fan of the development with the business and?
Well, I like to say this. I've been a developer for a number of years. During Christmas season, I actually launched Elf Yourself. I don't know if I ever told you that.
I've seen that on when I was
So 2012, launched the first ever Elf Yourself app, and I like to say that technology sort of democratizes itself, where everything's a lot more accessible. And to some degree, and I hate to say this sometimes as a technologist, is that it's more accessible than what it used to be. Mm-hmm. So it's still exciting because it has to, at the end of the day, sort of Steve Jobs' mantra, has to work, right? That's a fundamental part of being successful. You have to be able to, your podcast has to be accessible and people hear it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's 45 minutes long, and people lose it at a moment, sort of minute 10.
Yeah.
Then it's not something they're going to continue to come back. So it basically just has to work. But I think to some degree, we've almost trusted paths to be able to get there without friction. It's surprising, I think, for some people when they find, oh crap, it doesn't work, it crashed. We're at a point of technology where, at least in the context of the networks, it's special, but it's not that special. It's stable enough where we've figured out what we're doing over the years to make it work.
Yeah, I feel like in over the years, especially because since the development of the app, the Elf Yourself app, a lot has changed in the industry with technology, and even there's so many apps now. I feel like where there are apps showing you how to make apps, and it's like a plug-in, drop and go type of thing, but it doesn't have the same user activity. You can't do the same type of stuff with that.
That's actually a really great point. Because I think a lot of great ideas, and this is I'd say this to you, other entrepreneurs and other creative people, is a lot of times we disqualify ideas because they're sort of ahead of their time, and it's the devices can't necessarily support them. So I'll tell you the magic of where Elf Yourself sort of landed in my lap. I created a company called Magic Mirror with a whole other purpose. And secretly was building a video generation tool that would allow you to use your local device to generate a video.
Yeah.
So the folks who sort of ran the campaign came to us last minute and said, hey, I heard what you guys are building. Could you build an app for this? So we built it the first year within 3 or 4 weeks. But the idea was on iPhone at that time, fairly sophisticated devices. What we really figured out was how to do that on Android, because at that time the computing power and the ability to actually process a live video or render faces along with the video is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So that was actually what allowed us to be able to accelerate. But that single technology piece is probably just a few years away in the way of in the sort of the area of development for Android phones because they just didn't have the power at the time that iPhones do. Very simple, but that's a very similar. I use that lesson for a lot of inventions, ideas, to realize that a lot of times great ideas are just slightly ahead of their time.
I mean, anytime I think of like ideas or people, I always just think of Missy Elliott. Mm-hmm. Like Missy Elliott, like to me, whether it's through technology, through anything, like she was so ahead of her time when we were like, well, when I was young, looking at like all her music videos and the way she was using animation and the way that she was using like 3D graphics and stuff, like. Everything that she was doing back then is what people are actually doing now, and it's like so normal. Yeah. But back when Missy was doing it back in the day, people were like, "What is all this crazy stuff? She's putting other heads on different bodies and like how is like you know." But today, if you go on Instagram, there's a filter that will do that for you. Right. So it's like just to think that like that totally like makes sense in tune to everything that we deal with. When it comes to like. Just like how television has migrated, because I feel like everything right now is digital. We have Netflix, we have Amazon Prime, like everything is going to app-based, subscription-based models. And I feel like with Laugh Out Loud Network, they're kind of have the same model. Zeus Network has the same kind of model, and then we have this company Quibi that launched during the pandemic that also shut down within 4 months during the pandemic. So how do you feel about this whole subscription-based model? And when you're going to develop these apps, what are some of the obstacles that you've seen when it comes to building these kind of platforms?
Well, it's actually interesting you said that Laugh Out Loud doesn't have a subscription business. It's still a network, if you will. But the group is run by some of the smartest people I've ever worked with. And early on, what we discovered together, was the idea that there was a larger, greater opportunity for that kind of network to really sort of live everywhere. So they sort of coined a anywhere, everywhere approach and kind of got away from the subscription business where everybody else is sort of going in that direction. And they've been really, really successful and had, and basically what I think in their success is found sort of created their niche and then found the right partners to go partner with. So they're on Pluto, and they just did a big deal with NBC, and a huge deal, Kevin's on Sirius XM. So their path is very different, and I think they're one of the really, really great case studies of like some of the early networks that survived, and I think their success particularly is like learning how to sort of diversify. For the sort of core subscription business, the folks that have succeeded, and I think that are doing really well, are ones who really understand audience. Zeus is one of those examples. Lemmy Plummer, the founder, I think has always been a brilliant creative mind, and he and I connected a few years ago to sort of restructure and build a network. But I've watched the growth of it has really been focused on understanding audience, and the reason why Netflix is so far ahead of everybody else is they really, really understand who they're serving, and that's the core thing. So that's actually the part where the technology aside in terms of like the brick and mortar, the digital brick and mortar is a bit more trivial. The real technology is, do you understand the habits and the patterns of your audience, who you're reaching and how you super sort of serve them. And I think we talked about Quibi in sort of our early conversations. And I think they did two things wrong. I think they did both sides of technology were bad. The platform brick and mortar side, because they were just isolated to just phones. And then I also think that a lot of people didn't understand the reason why Netflix is such a juggernaut. And I see this day to day with the smaller networks that we're running. Is it's so critically important to understand who you're serving. And if you don't, you'll quickly die like they did.
I think because when I was watching like Quibi and how it was growing and how it was developing, I'm like, okay, so I see that they did a lot of great partnerships with all these different celebrities. They have different celebrities hosting different shows. They're pushing it. They're picking up old content. They're creating original content. But then when I seen like 24 hours later, Quibi is gone, and I was just like, I didn't understand. I think until me and you had that conversation when you were explaining how. It's because they isolated their audience to a cell phone. And, I'm thinking, well, we're at home on our cell phones, but actually we're at home on television.
Well, actually, that's a great point. And I think the observation is consumer choice, which is what I love about Laugh Out Loud's mantra, like the anywhere, everywhere approach. And what we did at Zeus is like basically the app is available everywhere. So what happens if you limit something to the device like they did, you have effectively limited the choice. It's like, if I wanted to watch it on my TV, I can't, right? We discovered that early on in embedding like Chromecast and AirPlay. Now you disable that, and then you're forcing me to sit here, if I don't have a stand, to hold this and watch it for a length of time. And
you don't even think about that type of stuff, but that is kind of limiting your audience.
But it's also another example where it's like, you know, money, there's COVID-19 has been the great equalizer.
Yeah.
Somebody called it the other day, I thought, that was brilliant. It's been the great equalizer for us to layer the level of the playing ground. And what you realize in the context of Quibi, it's like you get stars, doesn't necessarily matter, money doesn't necessarily matter, content is king, and you've got to deliver stuff that people want, period.
Yeah.
And you know, Zeus is such an exciting case study for me. I'm really proud of Lemmy, who I talked about, who's the founder, and we're super visionary, just super hungry. Like, to me, if I ever wanted to take a young entrepreneur and watch somebody, I'm go watch this guy work, because he is a machine. But one of the things that he figured out was, you know, starting with big stars, is some of the content that's actually performed have been people who you may not heard about.
Yeah.
The show right now, it's killing it for the network, is Chance has a show called
One More Chance. Yeah, I've seen that they just launched it. And I think one thing that I think Zeus has done very well when it comes to the content that they create is they've created content where it's I'm gonna use this term, I feel like it's they've catered to that ratchet, don't give a, don't care audience, and you know, they've dominated in creating content for those people. Even the show, The Conversation, right?
Yeah.
I feel like all of the content on that platform caters to that audience who was that audience who back in the day, they loved that real raw love and hip hop.
Right.
They loved that real raw Bad Girls Club, but then it got commercialized, and I feel like Zeus Network took it back there and brought it back, but let the people who they loved create the content.
Well, I like to say this, I always speak on big data and information and created this structure and that kind of explain how to use data, and go back to our earlier conversation, understanding audience is such a critical part, which is, you know, it's information, intelligence, and innovation. It's information is what we know. Intelligence is how much we understand about what we know, and then innovation is what do we do about it. And I think in the case of Zeus, go back to the inception of the network. There was a diverse number of shows. Some of them scripted, some of them not. Particularly, a lot of it was short form. What we discovered in the data that people were watching all the content at a really, really high clip. And that's okay, crap, we got a problem, because the short form is exciting and consumable, but once the customer is done, they're done. They love the platform, but they don't see the value, right? So you'll notice that a couple things happened over time. The shows got longer, and they also started focusing on, you know, an audience and a structure that was very clear that it works. And I think that's part of the intelligence in the content world. Going back to our conversation about Quibi and some of the other people, a lot of other networks that have ended up in the dead pool that didn't take the moment to say, hey, what does our audience want? Not just what do we give them, what do they like? What are the completion rates? What are they actually sitting through and watching? What are they saying? And that's such a critical part of I think what Zeus' success is like. I don't think it's indigenous to Zeus. I think it's the same sort of success you see at the high level of a Netflix, but then all the other things that sort of in between that do well and the ones that struggle are based on their ability to serve an audience and understand information as it comes in.
When it comes to creating content, for people who are creating content in the digital space, what advice do you have for people other than understanding who your audience is? Because of course that's a big component of it. What advice do you have when people are going to distribute their content?
Well, I'd say the thing that I would say is be okay with the truth, right? You and I have a connection through the church, right? Through Cali worship, and one of the years that I sort of spent outside of entertainment. I was a consultant for a number of nonprofits, particularly in the Christian space, and I came up with something called Jesus Marketing 101, which is Jesus goes to the disciples. He says, "Who do men say that I am?" Right, and then so that's the first part of the question, which is super critical. Then the second part of the question that he asks, he says, "Who do you say that I am?" Right. What people do is, in actually telling that story, sort of dismiss past the fact that everything that he asks is really important. Yeah. The reason why you need to understand what do people say is because you're going to spend the rest of your lives ministering to people who don't really even understand who he is. So that first question is just as important as the second one. So then the part that I'd say for content creators, business owners, you create an app, I talked about of yourself, is you got to be okay with the reality of what people say. It's like they're going to tell you that it sucks, they don't like it. And I launched my own first app, Valentine Yourself, which did really well. I mean, did really well. But some people were so cruel and so mean. I'm just like, this is my baby, and I'm just like, there's only one song, and it's like you have to pay for it, and it's like, why would I pay for this? And it was brutal. But that information, even though it may not have been the truth or the true perception, and it would be very different than the second questions that Jesus was asking the disciples, who do you say that I am? And guess what? Both those answers were wrong, right? We had to wait for Peter to get the revelation from the Holy Spirit to say that thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God, right? At the end of the day, even people that are working for you in your company don't necessarily know. This is the consulting part that I did with organizations. They may be working for you, but not necessarily know what the genesis and the real purpose is. And even in the content, like people can mean well and be so excited about what they've done, but just realize that the real world is going to have its own perception, right? And that's every business, that's every piece of content. And the way that you govern your actions is not based on what you think.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's one thing that people don't want to do, is they don't want to be real with themselves, because it hurts to them. Like we were just talking about this earlier.
I was literally just talking about that. I won't go into that because that person will know too. I don't want no problems. I don't want no problems, big homie. But my question to you is going back to creating content. I'm talking in the mic.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to creating content is there like a standard that you think people should put out content on?
Well, I think sometimes people, if you take an objective look, right? Do you enjoy it? Could you watch it? Could you sit through it? Right? I don't think some of those honest questions people don't ask. I do think that some of the, going back to like the technology discussion, I do think there's certain table stakes. Like bad audio is like a dead giveaway, this is bootleg, right? So it's like, dead giveaway, right? And you can have, great cameras, great lights, and
I'm reflecting back to all my horrible audio interviews. I put all those out.
But going back to the actual content itself, I think the thing that we have to search for and have to be honest with ourselves about is that there's all sorts of things that predictably in a creative room nobody would say that was a great idea. Like who said that Tiger King was a great idea?
You said like when they were setting it up.
Yeah, who is the bold blankety blank that was sitting in the room?
Yeah. And
said,
we're putting this out.
You know what? There's this guy, Joe, right? I mean, that to me, that it ends up like the person who put that forward. But here's the reality: I lost 14 hours of my life watching every single bit, right? And so I think that there's a lot of creative consternation where people sort of actually. It's a discipline that I loved, and I reminded her about the other day. The new president of Laugh Out Loud, Ty Randolph, is a great friend, another brilliant person to follow. She started getting us out of this discipline of saying that something's a bad idea. Like it's such a horrible stigma that it's almost like self-deprecation is somehow pious and great. And it's like, no, it's just somebody said somewhere, Tiger King and a bunch of other bad ideas that have truly transformed the world. I mean, there's a lot of
and might even help this man get out of prison.
Yeah.
Like almost on the verge of getting this man a pardon. Right. Telling the story.
Right. But we all know it, and that's the cool thing is that we even some of the more ridiculous stuff that I've done is like very seldom do you have a conversation where it's like I can't where I can use a Tiger King reference and people don't know what I'm talking about. It's like now it's in our culture and our vernacular, so somebody somewhere. So I think a lot of people, going back to the discipline that we developed at Laugh Out Loud, which I'm really proud of and I've carried with me since leaving there, was like this idea of throwing out, but this is a bad idea. Because there are a bunch of bad ideas that have succeeded. I think what happens is that bad ideas that are greatly executed end up being great, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times you have good ideas that are poorly executed, and it's like, there.
So the execution part of it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was about to ask you next. Because I see it all the time where it's like, in somebody give an idea, and especially the industry that I'm in. I'm actually like in the industry. Where you'll hear something and you'll be like, that sounds fucking nuts. Like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
But when they execute it, it's great.
Let me go outside of content and give you one of my favorite stories. right? So I've had the ability, the fortunate ability to work with a lot of celebrities, like some of the, and almost every one of them, like some of the most coolest, humble people. Kevin, just beautiful, wonderful, great person. I worked closely with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, Brad, and like the whole thing was like kind of a cool, kind of cool introduction to Hollywood. Like to say, here are these big names who are humble, grateful, they're listening to me, in my opinion. I'm like, who am I? Little country boy from Memphis. And so I'll never forget, I came to set up a sort of a kids network. That was what brought me to LA. And we needed to get sponsors. We needed people to sign on to be with us. So we were going to go see Jessica Alba. It just so happened my boss was the former head of William Morris, and was the person that kind of facilitated the merger between William Morris and Endeavor. And I had to hear the story before we walked in the room to meet Jessica that she didn't want to meet with us. I'm like, why? Why didn't she want to meet with us? Yeah. Well, because she went to him with this idea of the Honest Company, and he shot it down. He's like, it'll never work. So we actually had to walk in the room, and I'm there. And the two of them, her husband and my boss are good friends. So he's like, here's what I'm gonna tell you to do. You gotta bring some boom chicka popcorn and like we had a full care package. And the first 10 minutes was her sitting across the table like this. You said it wouldn't work. And yet we're in the building, and we're in this, and at the time it's actually, the building was right behind Lionsgate, in a shared sort of huge space where Yahoo was, and it's just a huge, like 30,000 square foot building, with products up the wall. And she walked us over to the place and prepared bags and stuff for all of us, and went through every single product of like why she created it and what was the passion and all the above. And it was like, here it is. This guy. I think a lot of people have been discouraged by walking into a room, telling somebody about their dreams, and then it doesn't work, and using and allowing their feedback to stop them from going. She didn't. It's such a remarkable story, and I loved watching her work and even looking at the growth of the company. And it's such a moment for me to say, not every great person who you go to who has the money to help you, who has the ability to help you will, neither do they need to.
I think the end goal of everything is make sure that your execution is there. If you're gonna go forward with whatever you're trying to do with your life, make sure you take the time to focus on your execution strategy. Yeah. Because if you're not executing it properly, it doesn't matter what it is, how great it is. If it didn't get executed properly, no one cares. Yeah.
So based off the execution, so this is my next thing, and this is something that I see a lot that people kind of steer away from or get tunnel vision and want to do things themselves. How do you feel about people starting things themselves versus actually building a team and getting the right people around them? Like, how significant
I think it's
is that?
crazy. I think it's actually probably the single greatest inhibitor, which is why you asked what my role was, and where I appreciate partnership is, there's an African proverb that says you want to go fast, go alone, you want to go further, go together. I might have butchered it, but it was something like that. It's pretty much like that. Almost got it. But I think that a lot of people have inhibited and retarded their growth by not partnering. And there are some partnerships, and there's certain people that, it does end badly, and you can't end up partnering with the wrong person and so. But I do think that every success that I've talked to, every success that I know about, I can point to maybe one key person, but that key person also had other key people around them, and really great leaders. And I learned this from my boss at HarperCollins, who's now one of the CEOs there. And he's one of the smartest people I've ever met. But was like, I surround myself with people who know what I don't know, who are smarter than me, and that's the type of I think the certain level of. There's a certain level of hubris that some people have where they think I can do it alone. It's like nothing great has ever been accomplished alone. Jesus himself, once again, the Son of God, had 12 disciples, right? And it's like, and
to let you know right there.
Yeah, right. Acts chapter 2, Peter goes and preaches. Jesus could have done that, but that wasn't his assignment. It was Peter's. So if the greatest man who ever lived needed people. And I think that's actually the brilliant things we start finding out about people that we think are so great. It's like, they had help. It's somebody behind that was helping you. you know, and that's okay. And I think that's a part where, I don't know if it's selfish ambition or whatever, but I just don't know. I know a lot of great people who have done a lot of great things, and not one single person who's done it alone.
Yeah, because I don't think anything can be done alone.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a great way to wrap up today's conversation too, because I feel like when you're trying to build a network, if you're trying to do anything in television and production, it is great to have a great team and to go start sourcing your team. And I think sometimes when you think of the word team, you think, oh, I gotta go hire people and I don't have the money to hire people. But sometimes it's not about hiring people, it's about coming together with people and being able to offer someone else something that they can offer you something and you guys can go together to get there.
That's an interesting thing too. I don't know how much you're following. So that was an idea in one of the, I think, advice that was given to someone coming into Hollywood is like never enter into a room. I can't remember who told me this advice. It may have been Boris Kojo, but just that a lot of people think objectively about what can you do for me instead of I hate to get the attribution wrong. Whoever said this because it was a powerful moment. It was like actually enter every conversation with what can I do for you?
Yeah.
What skills or what opportunity? What do I have? And what I like to think is I've started to build a career and reputation of people picking up the phone and saying, hey, how do I?
Yeah.
Right? And I love being able to answer that question. And even when I can't, being able to figure it out. And I certainly have my circle of people that I call and say, hey, how do I? Right? And I feel like with having that sort of access, then anything is possible.
Yeah, anything is possible. And how, I know that earlier you said that you're an advocate for having writing people back on LinkedIn. So I feel like that would be a great start for people to, if they wanted to reach out to you. And is that where you want people to reach out to you?
It's anywhere. Everything's at Shane Norman, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. I'm super accessible. I'll talk to anybody, literally. And I've appreciated along the way developing relationships with people who have made time for me when I had nothing to offer. So that's who I am.
Yeah. If anyone is out there and you're watching and you absorb any information from today's conversation, I do want you guys to go and flash Shane Norman and tell him thank you. Because we appreciate you for coming on the show today. I know Disco's walking out right now. He appreciates you for coming on the show today. And I thank all of you guys for tuning in and watching and listening to Knowledge is Key. We will be back with more great shows like this to give you guys way more great information. This is Shane Norman. Thank you so much for coming in. And I'm Kei Renee, and I will see you guys next time on Knowledge is Key.